In the harshness of Australians' weather, men also need to look after themselves and their skin. And today we're going to be talking to someone who had an idea to create a range of men's products to look after skin and took that idea and made it into a successful business. Hi, welcome to the Secret Men's Business Podcast. This is Joey Busuttil, and on today's show, we're going to be talking to the owner of Aussie Man, the skin range that looks after your skin. I mean, look how great I look. So let's welcome to the podcast Dave Willey. Dave, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for talking to us all the way from Sydney.
Thanks for having me on.
So I'm excited. I actually bought your range to try it, and I was surprised how quickly it arrived, B, how nicely packaged it was, and C, how amazing the moisturizer is. So great job. So do you want to just give us a bit of an introduction to yourself before we get started?
Yeah, so my name's Dave. I'm 35, and as you can probably tell, I'm ironically not an Aussie man, but my brand is called the Aussie Man. So I'm from the UK, but I've lived in Australia here for 9 years. I've been living in Sydney for all of that, but I have explored around quite a lot, and I've recently been spending quite a bit of time in Melbourne for the first round of isolation because my partner lives down there. But now I'm up here in Sydney and trying to make a business work that came to life out of COVID.
I mean, you do look like an Aussie though. When I saw your Facebook profile, I only just realised you're English just talking to you now because you have got that Aussie look. So I wouldn't tell anyone.
So sunshine and skincare, right?
so how did it all come together? How did the Aussie Man come together? Was it a concept that you've been thinking of, or was it just something that just sort of came to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, so what happened really around March time, obviously everything that was going on and kind of the whole world as we know it kind of going through a difficult time, I got to a point where I lost all income. So I was basically working away. I was working for an events company, and then suddenly everything kind of went it all dried up, and I was stuck without any kind of money coming in the door.
Wow.
So I was at home I was in Melbourne at my partner's house and sat around just thinking, you know what, I've really got to do something about this. I can either sit around and feel sorry for myself, or I can, I can make some of those ideas happen that I've been thinking about for a long time. So at the back of my mind, I've kind of wanted to create something in the e-commerce space for ages. So I've been kind of watching, and I kind of get a little bit geeky about this. I was watching all the market trends of what's going on in terms of online spend and kind of e-commerce world. So I knew I wanted to teach myself that as an industry. So I was like watching YouTube videos, reading blogs, just really trying to like absorb information. And then I started thinking about, okay, if I'm going to do this, what product might I use if I do want to sell it, or if not, use it as just like a case study. So I started thinking about other sectors that I knew were booming. And men's skincare has had kind of double-digit growth over the last 5-10 years. It's something that that I kind of realized was, hey, I'm not getting any older, right? So I knew with the Aussie sun, I was like, I need to kind of keep an eye on my face. Can't afford Botox. Going to be really vain and say, you know what? I started to use skincare and I had no idea where to start with it. So I just put all the parts together. I thought, right, teach yourself e-commerce, find a product that you're interested in and want to learn about, and I just dived straight in and taught myself as much as I could. And then this idea of the Aussie Man went from being an idea to like, now I own a skincare brand. Like, what?
I know. I mean, like, and also before we get into that a bit more, like, it really is amazing how you were able to become adaptable. Because I think that that's a really big part of what we're going through at the moment is you can sit there and just feel sorry for yourself, or you can be adaptable, because what you're really showing us is that there's opportunity out there, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. I mean, one thing I forgot to mention just then, and not to kind of be all like boo-hoo me, but because I am British, and at the moment I'm just about to do my permanent residency kind of visa. Yeah. And so I wasn't entitled to JobKeeper or Job Seeker.
Wow.
So I had to move out of my apartment. I didn't have any income. I was living with my partner, and like that just added the pressure of just thinking like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because also like Scott Morrison's government, and is not going to get political about it, but quite disappointingly, they turned around and said, you should probably go home. Like,
Right.
that's not okay. There's many temporary visa holders out there, but I'm in that situation where it's just like, I mean, like many
Mm.
people, so I don't want to dwell on it. And I think off the back of that, kind of almost a bit of like a kick up the ass, saying that you need to do something about this, because no one's going to give you a handout here, Dave. And if not, you are really,
You're in
really
trouble. Do you feel that, looking back retrospectively, that you are the type of person that is quite proactive and creative? Like, did you think that was part of your advantage? Because
yeah,
I'm listening to you, and the funny thing is that this podcast and this whole concept was born from coronavirus as well.
right,
So
okay, nice.
so it's like, I think that people have the opportunity. So I just want to not. I guess I'm curious to know if you had that in you. Have
Yeah,
you?
definitely. I mean, I think the one thing I think I have realized is that I think there's many different types of people, but where I've worked in the past, I've always been very much on the strategic side of things. So in terms of my personality, I'm very good at looking at the bigger picture. I'm understanding the wider markets, looking at things on kind of like a macroeconomic level. Whereas the one thing I'm finding now is, when you set up something like this, you've got to do everything, and it's all about the minutiae. You're there with like that, and I'm not great with detail. In fact, I'm really bad at detail.
Oh my
But
god! So
I'm learning. I need to be good
we
at it.
should swap, Dave, because like I'm really bad with I don't see big picture. I'm really fast, like that's
Right.
when you picked up the spelling mistakes and all that. I'm really good with doing things in that moment, and just everything can be done in that moment. So it's interesting how people process things differently. So how did you find? You didn't really use skincare, and now you've got a skincare range. And how
Yeah.
did you find the whole process of creating it? Like, did you know what to do? Was it hard?
Yeah. So I mean, I think there's definitely. I mean, hindsight is a wonderful thing. I've definitely made some mistakes. I've definitely made some costly mistakes.
Because was it
Um,
the name was different, wasn't it, at the beginning?
yeah. So the name originally was Mr. 30ish, because
Right.
it was designed for guys in their 30s. So that.
See, I wouldn't have bought it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So these, basically, one of my very good friends that works in the industry, I kind of sat down with her and went for a coffee and kind of talked her through the concept. And she's like, "Look, it looks great. I love your branding. I love what you've done. But you are alienating an audience by calling it 30-ish." So
Mm,
it was called Mr. 30-ish, because when you kind of get to your early 30s, it's when the collagen in your skin starts to deteriorate. So it's that at that point in your life that you really should do something about
sure.
skincare.
But are you sure
Again,
that you
all
are you
this,
sure you didn't are you sure you didn't call it that because you're in your 30s?
100%. I created the product for me,
Right.
and created the product and then the brand off the back of that research. Because I didn't really know all of that until I was sat there with nothing to do apart from watch Netflix or attempt to build a business.
Mm.
Don't get me wrong, I did watch Netflix as well. So like, I'm not like saying I'm perfect. But yeah, so there's the name came off the back of that research and my personal situation, because I wanted to tie it back to who I was and be like, you know what, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, this is where I'm at in my life, and this is the problem I'm solving, is to demystify skincare for men in their 30s.
Mm.
But then, so that was the concept. And then I spoke to my friend, she's like, great, love what you're doing, great positioning, but you're alienating anyone in their 40s.
Or their
And
20s.
right now, and then 20s, yeah, exactly. She's like, right now, you can't afford to do that. She's like, nah, find another name.
Mm.
And then I've still obviously got all the stuff for Mr. 30ish. So who knows, one day I might do an offshoot product.
Yeah, that could be like a spin-off. I mean, like, I'm in my 50s, so like I love it. Like, I've been doing skincare all my life, and it's just so good to find something that you know works really, really well. So in that regards, how did you I don't know, I want to know how you go about finding what goes into the bottles.
Um,
I mean,
well,
don't tell us your secrets,
yeah,
but like
yeah. I mean, I can't give too much away. But basically, the way it kind of works is it's all about finding a supplier that kind of matches up with what you're looking for. And so when I was kind of looking into it and researching how other brands source their product, I really wanted to find a manufacturer that kind of aligned with my thinking of the product. I wanted something that was all natural. I wanted something that was cruelty free. I wanted something that was organic, something that was vegan, something that was really just focused on the needs of men. And I suppose there are some kind of people out there that say that all human skin is the same. There is a slight difference in men's skin, but it's not massive. So all of my products would work absolutely fine on a female's face rather than a male's face.
Mm.
They're definitely not. It's not either or. But I wanted to find a manufacturer that was kind of all Australian, using real, natural, active, organic ingredients that really get results.
Mm.
I think that's the thing, right? You know, there's, I mean, and that's kind of where I came from. That I didn't know what I was doing when I was buying skincare. So I was just going into like Woolies or Coles, finding whatever was on offer, grabbing this bottle of Nivea or whatever, not thinking twice about the ingredients and just being like,
Yeah.
without a regime in mind or like no structure.
Mm.
And now I know that that's wrong.
So your range, right? You know, you said you go to a supplier. Does that mean that your range isn't being used by someone else?
So there is part of my range that is being used by other people.
Okay.
So at this stage, because I'm quite low volume, you have to go to a supplier and you pick from their selection of products.
Right.
And there's not many people using it. But if you want to own your own formulation, you've got to go out and pay for that. And then you have
Sure.
quite a high minimum order quantity.
Yeah, and that'll happen to you, I think. I mean,
100%, yeah.
the thing is that it's reasonably priced, it's beautifully bottled, it smells great, and I think that. Well, I wanted to ask you actually, in your research,
Yeah.
how have you found? You know, are men waking up to this whole? I've been doing skincare since 1980, so I'm fine with that. But like, have you
Yeah.
found like the tradies and all those sort of Aussie guys? Are they now realizing that this is important?
Yeah, 100%. And I think now more than ever, guys are, well, firstly, they're kind of waking up to that looking after your skin is the good thing to do. It makes you look better if you've got fresh skin. It makes you look better if you've got hydrated skin, reduces the signs of aging. And I think, I mean, there's kind of part of me that is thinking that people just want to look after themselves more. And there's also part of me that thinks, in a really skeptic, narcissistic view, that people are just a little bit more conscious and they want to look their best possible selves, which is actually not a bad thing. Like, I think it's all about confidence. And if you look great, you feel great. And particularly with like signs of aging, a lot of people are kind of aware of them. So
I think it's a lot more in our faces now.
Yeah.
You know, we don't like, you know, the Aussie that used to go out in the sun without putting sunscreen on and have that leathery, wrinkly face in their 40s and 50s. I don't think people want that now. And interesting enough, Dave, like I interviewed a guy who owns like a Botox clinic.
Right. Okay.
And, I mean, he told me that the average age is 23.
Wow.
See, I thought it was going to be someone in their 40s. So I think that
Yeah.
there's a new sort of generation of 20-somethings that are actually already doing it.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, the 30, 40-year-olds are now catching on.
Yeah.
So in the process of putting it all together, what obstacles did you face? Like, did you face any?
Oh, yeah, many, many, many obstacles. Well, I mean, I think the first one really was, how am I going to fund this whole thing? So I was quite fortunate that I was kind of staying with my partner. So that meant that my rent was kind of looked after for a bit. But at the same time, you've still got to stump the cost of buying product, right? And now and there's multiple hurdles that I've kind of gone along. And now my next hurdle is, sorry, we'll start at the beginning. So first hurdle really was having the motivation to do it. So getting up in the morning and being like, you know what, I could do nothing today because it was isolation. No one was doing anything. I could lounge around and do nothing, but that gets boring after a week or so. So then it was having the motivation to get up and stick to a routine. So I was getting up, having breakfast at normal time, sitting down at the table in the living room and just cracking on, writing lists, working out what I needed to do, sourcing bottle suppliers, finding, playing around and tinkering with the branding, how to get the labels to look perfect. Okay, once I got the labels, what packaging do I put it in? Where do I source the packaging? How can I make it green credential suppliers? Like, it's just been a series of like lists and just kind of slowly working through it. And then suddenly you're sat there and you're like, right, okay. And then you get hit with this notification or like podcasts that I stumble across that goes on about, for example, there's quite strict regulations around the information that's put on labels for these products. And then I'm like panicking, being like, oh my God, someone's going to sue me. And then I need to speak to an insurance provider because I need to make sure that I don't give someone any like infections or anything, and then they kind of bankrupt me. So like, there's a whole world of hurdles to jump
Yeah.
through.
Did you
But
know that? Did you know all about that before, or was it one of
no,
those things that every day you learn something new?
every day I've been learning something new, and that's kind of been quite a good thing. And ultimately, I think that's
Yeah.
why I did it. I quite like the challenge.
Yeah,
And
and
before
that's
being
also probably why you are so driven by it, because even though you said you could have watched TV and just done nothing, but there must have been a motivation or a reason why. Like, did you
yeah,
feel that passion? Like, is it your baby?
yeah, definitely. Like, it's totally my baby now. I'm going to take it to the next level, and I'm going to keep going and keep going and keep going. And the thing that I found is that there weren't any major hurdles. There were lots of little tiny incremental issues to deal with, but
Okay.
that's kind of what most people do all day, every day at work anyway, right? But
Yeah.
you're just on your own, so you just got to work it out.
Hmm.
And Google and YouTube and everything, they're just like, it's there's
Of
so much
course.
great information out there. And
Yeah.
the other thing that I found as well, which is an interesting kind of takeaway, is there's loads of Facebook groups for every niche under the sun,
Yeah.
and they're all incredibly supportive.
Mm.
So there's one, for example, that I'm part of now, which is Shopify Australia, which is the platform I use for the website. Shopify Australia, Shopify Entrepreneurs, Shopify Global E-commerce Geniuses, and you literally can jump on there, ask any question, whether you're speaking from a technical perspective or you want to just know, you got a query about how like something works. You just go on there and just literally say, hey, I'm stuck, is there anyone here that can help me? And every single time I've done that, someone's jumped on and been like, hey Dave, here's a ready solution to that, try this supplier, or try changing that setting on this dashboard. So I think one thing that I would say is a key learning is that most of the issues have been done by someone else at some point, and
Yeah.
I'm not reinventing the wheel here. Like, I was not recreating like a new currency or anything.
Yeah, sure,
And that's been really good.
but I still think that you're tapping into something. I know we're here to talk about your range, but I think there's something deeper here that is really inspirational to listeners, and that is your ability to adapt and to be motivated.
Mm.
Because because it can seem daunting, can't it?
Oh, 100%.
Like you just think that, oh, look, it's a bottle. I just have to put stuff in it, put a label, and then all these things happen. So can I
Yeah.
just look at the mental health perspective? So
Yeah.
what did you learn about yourself in regards to this process? Like, how did what did you learn about that guy that was sitting on the couch to the guy he's sitting here now?
Um, okay. So I think, well, I mean, like everyone says, it's all about positive mindset, recognizing that this is a short-term situation. And I've got to say, at the start of it, I went through kind of quite a period of not depression, but just a little bit of like rage.
Hmm.
Like like I said, I've been in Australia 8, nearly 9 years now. I went home for a year in between, and that disrupted my visa path. So I haven't quite got my permanent residency. So for someone who's paid a lot of tax in this country, like 8 years of tax, to
Mm.
be told by the government that there was zero financial support for me was literally heartbreaking. It was
Mm.
genuinely heartbreaking. And you're just like, and then you can't, everyone else is getting, and I know there's a lot of people are in a very bad situation too, so I'm not trying to be boohoo me, but that was devastating.
Mm.
To think that I was about to lose my apartment, I was about to lose all the hard work I've done, probably might have to go home because there was nothing, no
Yeah.
financial support whatsoever. So it started off in a really dark place.
Yeah.
Then I kind of like looked through, I just realized that there's no one was going to get me out of this. I wasn't going to get any handouts. So I just was about trying to be positive, just trying something new, keeping my brain busy. And the more I got into this, I started getting really excited about it, thinking, "Oh, that could be fun. It could be interesting. It could be good to know more about that."
Mm.
And then I just kept going and kept going. And I think it was all about doing small bite-sized chunks of work each day, like not letting the big hurdles or the big kind of issues like kind of phase me, just be like, okay, slowly work on something. And also reaching out to other people, like I mentioned, but for feedback. So I would design a web page or a logo and just send it out to friends and be like, hey guys, what do you think of this? And people like helping people, right? And people ultimately, I've found through this whole process, firstly, people generally want to help. Secondly, people love to tell you what they think you've done right and what they've done wrong.
Yeah.
Which is good and it's bad. Like obviously taking on board sometimes being like everyone does want to throw their kind of like coin into the ring or whatever the phrase is.
Well, you know, if you ask people for their opinions, they're going to give you their
They're going to give
opinions.
it exactly.
Yeah,
Sometimes their opinions are BS, and other times
yeah,
they're amazing.
yeah.
So you got to,
But
sometimes, but you got to listen to them, and that
y-
was definitely something because
yeah,
people.
but also you could see, you know, I could sort of hear your evolution. Is that, you know, when you first start off, you want to hold on really tight, and then you sort of trust, and you know,
Yeah,
you've got these visions of it going, you know, big and being a big brand for you. So
yeah.
eventually, you have to learn to let go.
Oh, totally.
You know, how did you? Because this is a mental health podcast. So, like, I'm just curious that how did you? Did you feel that the depression like sort of started to just fade away once you went into that mindset, or did you have to do other things to help yourself?
Yeah, I think. I mean, in terms of helping myself, I think trying to stay. Well, firstly, not drinking every day was good. Because particularly that first stage of isolation, like many people, Dan Murphy's did get quite a bit of the money that I didn't have. So thank you, American Express, for funding that. But I think in terms of my well-being, making sure that I was exercising, getting out, staying kind of positive, staying in touch with friends, making lots of kind of catch up, making time for catch ups with people. And I do think, yeah, I think exercise, cutting down on the booze, and staying in touch with friends were my kind of three ways to get through that time.
And you had that did you have that logic in your head, or did you sort of have to be, you know, because sometimes when you're depressed or in that heavy state, you don't really necessarily think. You
Yeah,
know, you can easily go either way, can't you? So it's good that you went.
absolutely.
Yeah, but do you think that you just, you know, something clicked and you said, okay, enough, I've got to get up and do this, or did you get someone telling you, or
Yeah,
how did that evolve for you?
I think it was definitely kind of off my own back. To be honest, was the most of the motivation because I just knew I had no choice
Mhm.
to do it. But then I do think having support of my partner and friends helped as well. Because every now and again, I get a little bit of a nudge, basically being like, the message was quite clear that was, I'm in this house too. You need to be like, was very supportive, but also when I was kind of down and being a bit grumpy, being like recognizing that, okay, I'm sharing this space with someone else and it
Right.
is 24/7. And I wanted to make sure that I was trying to be positive and upbeat and not just being looking inward on all of
Yeah.
that. I wanted to be looking outward. I wanted to be looking ahead. I wanted to be looking at the future, looking to be like, you know what?
Be optimistic.
Be optimistic because yeah, it's a hard time for everyone. And I think it's even more like, it's
It is a hard
amplified because
time.
of
It
what's going
is.
on.
But going back to what we said earlier, and I keep saying this on my podcast and on my post, is that the key, you know, the key word is adaptability, because in reality, there's no such thing as a bad situation. It's only what we attach to it, right?
Absolutely.
So right now, this is what's happening. So now that you're here today, are you feeling like really, like, what's your thought process now about where you're going? Where is this product going to take you, you think?
Well, I mean, I'm really excited about the future of the product. So I've had quite a lot of conversations over the last few weeks about what I'm kind of looking at in terms of potential growth. So, hang on, I think we're getting signed out. No, we're not.
No?
Sorry, yeah. So I'm really excited about the growth of the product because I do think there is huge opportunity in Australia and also across kind of Asia and Middle East. There's a big hunger globally for Australian-made products, and natural products made from Australian ingredients generally goes down quite well on the global platform. So I'd love to get there. Today's problem is like, I really am struggling to get my head around Facebook ads.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I mean, I understand them, I get them, and so, and again, it's all about those like little like micro-sized issues that if I can't find out a solution, I'll reach out to other people.
Yeah.
But so right now, like I know where I want the brand to be, which is to be a recognized kind of household name amongst men when they're looking for skincare to combat the signs of aging. And I'd love it to be in kind of the more premium stores. It's definitely not because of the price point, which is obviously reflective of the ingredients. It's not a lower end supermarket
Yeah,
skincare
it's
product.
it's not a Chemist Warehouse product.
It's not. No, it's
Yeah.
definitely not. It's for the person who is serious about their skincare, like
Yeah.
kind of wants.
And I mean, like, I think that I think that you just need to do something or create something that is going to create a connection to the product.
Yeah,
Like my experience with the customer service and the delivery is already got me, when I first saw your website and it said you can do a subscription,
yeah,
and I'm thinking, oh, that's cool. I thought, oh, I won't do that. But like now that I've experienced the product and I've experienced how it arrived and it's really, good, it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to subscribe. But,
yeah,
have you thought of doing something that's a little bit, memorable so people remember? Because there are a lot of products out there.
yeah,
So,
really.
have you thought of have you thought of anything that will make yours stand out? Is it just going to be the fact that it's natural and it's Australian?
Yeah, so I mean, that's kind of the next evolution of it is like, how do I, now that I've got all the basics and the foundations there, it's
Mm,
like, how do I really amplify the marketing? How do I get the message out? How do I really go on a bigger level? So we're featured in Time Out magazine this month. We're going to be in Men's Health. I've done
wow.
a couple of interviews across various platforms over the last few weeks. And there's a few other blogs. I've got influencers on board. So it's now that next stage of like, right, I really need to tell the world about the product. And I think, I mean, the thing I'm really kind of going for is the whole Australian made, organic, natural, vegan, and ultimately it's a great price point that gets results.
Mm. And,
So
and maybe link all that to the environment and not using palm oil and all those things that we know are destroying forests. And I think that is something that people really, go behind and
yeah,
support. Like I know that because of what you've just said, I will buy your product because of that fact.
yeah,
Well, another other big companies, they lie or they try and hide all that fact. And you're right about the labeling too. The labels are really tiny and they're in code, so you don't really know that there is palm oil or other bad things in there.
yes.
So it's good.
Well, the other thing I found is it's trying to find the motivator for each customer. And like, so for example, you mentioned there about some of the natural ingredients, and other customers I've had have come on board and said, "Oh, we love the fact that you don't use sellotape."
Right, what's
And I'm
that?
like, "Okay, oh God, I mean, I've literally got it right here." So I'm using like eco.
Oh, right.
So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
using tape that again is good for the environment. It's made from recycled materials. It doesn't have any like cellophane in it that doesn't decompose. And all of the packaging is all made from recycled materials. And what I've found is that it's all about these days lots of little things done well. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to do because you never know what's the one bit that's going to be the trigger for
Mm.
someone to say, you know what, I really like your product.
Yeah.
So
And actually, you're
I know
right,
I've had
isn't
people
it?
that, so
People are probably going to look at the whole carbon footprint.
yeah,
And that's good that you thought of that because, like, I wouldn't have thought of that. So there
no,
are so many little baby things. So
yeah.
if someone was listening and they had an idea of something to create a e-commerce sort of product, what would be some of your advice? Like, what advice would you give them in regards to starting?
I would say testing, testing, and more testing. Don't go out there and spend a fortune on getting someone to build the site for you. Don't go and spend loads of money on Facebook ads if you don't know what you're doing. Don't go and buy loads of products from multiple different suppliers. Just go really small first,
Mm,
get your product right, work out who your consumer is, and then just play around with it. Tinker, try different ads, play around with Shopify yourself. Like, there are a lot of people out there that I've seen that lose money because they
they
think
go big.
they've got a great idea and they go too big too quick. Like they'll
Yeah.
throw like 10 grand down on the table and get someone to build a website for them. You do not need to do that in this day and age at all.
Mm.
You can literally sit on there and you can teach yourself. If you can't teach yourself, build something and then reach out to different groups to get information and tips. So my main bit of advice would be don't spend any money unless you have to. You got to be thrifty. You got to be like real hustling. Like don't put your hand in your pocket unless you really, really need to. And then when you're 100% sure that that money that you spend will convert into revenue.
Okay. And what about on the flip side? What advice would you give them in regards to maintaining motivation?
I think the main thing is to constantly keep telling yourself, you can do this. You absolutely can do this. And I think that's the things you keep reminding yourself every morning when you get up and you have bad days, good days, in the middle days, and amazing days, that it will, if you continue to achieve little steps each day, you'll often, I mean, I keep looking back now thinking like, wow, I've literally built a skincare brand in 3 months, which baffles my
I
mind.
know. I mean, when I
And
had no idea that you did it just this year. Like it's pretty
yeah,
mind blowing, isn't it?
but it's all come about because it's just been taking the whole thing and don't think about the whole thing. Have an idea of where you want to be, so kind of have that vision in mind, but don't let the vision overwhelm you.
Mm.
Just each day, write a list of I'm going to get these things done. Next day, I'm going to get these things done. Next day, I'm going to get these things done, and just make sure at the end of every week you've got everything done that you'd hope to get done. If not, don't beat yourself up because you've probably done 30 of the 40 tasks you wrote down. And I think that's what's worked for me. Hopefully that'll work for other people.
Yeah,
But it's just little tiny steps.
that's good advice. Dave, thank you so much for taking time out. You probably next time I speak to you, you'll probably be a millionaire or something. It sounds like you. It sounds like you've got big plans, which is fantastic. And I hope everything goes well for you.
Thank you
So
much.
yeah, hopefully we can maybe talk to you down the track when you got more products. One thing I want to one bit of advice I want to give you is, or feedback is, I would really love the bottles for the moisturizer to be a little bit bigger.
Bigger, yeah.
You know,
Also,
like
the reason for the bottles are the size they are, but again, all feedback is welcomed. And I need to make this clearer, which is another key thing I found. The bottles are specifically designed to last for 30 days because of the subscription service.
Okay, perfect.
But again,
that's good. That makes sense. It makes total sense.
Yeah.
And also, I think what I noticed is because it's all natural, you actually don't need as much.
No.
You know,
Exactly.
it's actually really silky and
yeah, the eye cream should last a while as well. That's why they're kind of that size. It should last you 30 days. And then if you're on the subscription, then you get another batch ready to roll.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Hope everything goes well and we'll speak to you soon.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you. You've been listening to the Secret Men's Business podcast. This podcast will be out on Monday, and all podcasts are out at 9 o'clock on Monday on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Manager, and now on Amazon Music. So check us out. And don't forget to subscribe. Okay, everyone. See you next Monday. Bye.